I'm Robi Ganguly from Apptentive, and I'm joined today by Alicia from Allrecipes. Tell us what Allrecipes is and what you do there.
Yes, okay, so Allrecipes is the #1 digital food brand in the world, according to ComScore. We see about 40 million uniques a month across web and mobile web. And during holiday time, that can easily double, right? Thanksgiving is our Super Bowl. And then what that number doesn't include is our mobile app user base. So we've had about 23 million downloads of our flagship app, the Allrecipes Dinner Spinner, and all of that has been organic. So Allrecipes is a brand that's very much invested in their users. We have to be, because they've made us what we are today. Our recipes are all user generated, and really what differentiates Allrecipes from any other kind of food or recipe website is the amount of engagement and passion that our users have for the content on the site. And they show it by submitting recipes, by posting reviews.
Obviously, the customer engagement is a big part of the product itself. What is it like as a philosophy at the company? How do you think about the consumer, the customer? How do you talk about them, and how do you think about learning more from them?
Yeah, I would say that it's central to how we approach everything that we do. From the product decisions we make to the business decisions we make, we always consider what is the impact on our users going to be. And so the way that manifests itself across the organization is we have a customer support team through which we funnel all types of customer feedback, like emails, like phone calls, like Apptentive feedback, like reviews in the App Store, or even reviews on the site. So that all funnels through the customer support team, and then they in turn disseminate that information throughout our entire organization. So really any of us at any given time has our finger on the pulse of what our users are caring about at that moment. The other piece of it is we have an engagement team, a consumer engagement team, and so they are doing surveys and usability testing and doing the more sort of asking explicit questions of the users to see how they're experiencing our changes. So those two things combined really color everything that we do, all the decisions that we make.
When you talked about customer support, you didn't talk about it the way a lot of companies talk about customer support, right? A lot of companies talk about customer support as there's this team and they are sort of like the firewall between us and the customers, but you described it as they're the disseminators of customer information and insight, right? And so that's a different perspective.
This is something that Allrecipes figured out a long time ago, and I think it has to do with its roots being so community driven. Allrecipes as a brand has always had this dialogue with the user, and it's really valuable. I mean, we get weekly reports from the customer support team, and we get monthly reports. And the expectation is that we use that information to see what type of reactions are trending, and then we make decisions about our product and our business based upon those facts. So, for instance, we've rolled back certain ad network partners that we sort of danced with in the past, and we were like, oh, we are getting extremely negative feedback on this. Roll it back, because we need to preserve the user experience of this site. One of the core features on Allrecipes properties is the recipe box, which you mentioned earlier, which is, in the classic sense, it's where you store the recipes that you want to make or you want to think about later. It's basically a storage place. And so we've recently redone our mobile apps, Dinner Spinner, but prior to that, the recipe box on Dinner Spinner stood alone. So it did not synchronize with the recipe box on the web. And we got a lot of feedback where users did not like that. They wanted to be able to take their Allrecipes experience across platform and have the same recipe box on the web that they had on mobile app and Dinner Spinner. And so that was the biggest change we made when we re-released Dinner Spinner. And when we re-released it, we said, okay, well, how should we do this? And so we looked at how users were using it on the web, and we said, hey, when they have a recipe box, they add things, but they never ever delete them. So I guess we don't need that functionality on the recipe box on Dinner Spinner. And so we launched Dinner Spinner with recipe box synchronization, and it did not have the ability to delete recipes out of the recipe box. And the public outcry was swift and passionate. People absolutely wanted the ability to delete recipes out of their recipe box, and despite the fact that we had given them what we thought they wanted, we plummeted in App Store ratings, right? We went from a 4-star to a 2-star almost overnight, because while we thought we had it right, we had missed one pivotal thing. And it hinges on the fact that our users have different expectations of the experience across platforms. I don't know exactly why that's a different expectation right now, but clearly it was. Yeah. And so what we did was we did an off-cycle release. We're like, okay, we need to fix this right now. And so we did. We gave users back the ability to delete, and at the same time, we also had implemented Apptentive into our app, which had been on the product roadmap anyway. And so the net effect of that was we saw users once again like, breathe a collective
right.
sigh of relief. Now they're happily saving things to their recipe box and deleting them. And we were able to affect our App Store rating. So we went from a 2-star now to a 5-star after listening to our users and also providing them with a mechanism to give us more direct feedback via the Apptentive tool. So that was a very big deal for us. It was a very significant lesson learned.
Yeah, and those App Store ratings and reviews, they matter a lot, right? Like,
yes.
How do you think about the impact of better ratings and reviews? You were talking about the fact that you've done almost all of your traffic is really organic, right? Like
yes.
people find you on their own, they download you. So are ratings and reviews important to that? How do you think about that?
Yes, 100%. I mean, that honestly, I have never worked for a company before where when I tell people where I work, they freak out. They're like, "Oh my God, I love Allrecipes." And that's because food is such like a personal experience for people. It's social, it's cultural. So if you can get that right in an interactive environment on a website, on a mobile app, that's a very big deal. And so, yes, we take the reviews very, very seriously because we want to have that organic growth and passion, those self-selected evangelists. We want them to keep going. We want them to keep having that great experience. And so, reviews are the signal that other users who maybe are not as familiar with the brand use to decide, am I going to use Allrecipes or somebody else? Right? So they're a very big deal to us. There's a big difference between getting user feedback where you can see the feedback, but you cannot respond directly to the person who gave you the feedback, and user feedback where you can get the feedback and now you can have a dialogue with that user, right? And so without Apptentive, it's kind of a one-way conversation. With Apptentive, we are able to have a two-way conversation with our app users. And so, yeah, that's significant because each one of those users that feels listened to, that feels taken seriously, that sees the effects of the conversation that they initiate with us, becomes a more loyal user, right? So it's more evangelism.
That's fantastic. That makes me just so happy to hear you say one-way versus two-way, because that's just, I think that's the way the world really should work, the two-way conversation with your customers. So that's awesome. And so we were here having a dialogue. I have one last question. How could we do better for you?
Well, we are Allrecipes, and we are both based here in Seattle. And I know that we gave you a pumpkin pie, homemade, for Thanksgiving this year. And so I think that you could send us more baked goods.
Okay.
I think we'd like that.
More baked goods. And just to bring everybody into this, on Thanksgiving, their team showed up in person with one of the most delectable pumpkin pies and homemade whipped cream. It was really amazing. You went above and beyond. And that really says so much about Allrecipes, really, just your culture and the way that you approach it. So we need to go do some baking.
Okay, good.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Alicia. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Robi.
Cheers.